Oh, I'm so sorry for the tardiness. Oh my gosh, you guys, I feel like I'm constantly like these asshole comedy shows or like award shows where everybody starts late and it's so annoying, and I am sorry about that. People might have just been coming over from Truth Against the Machine because I had scheduled a short live stream for them. So sorry about the conflicts. It's surprisingly difficult to tired of, let's see here. So it's really a lot more work than it looks to like be able to do a live stream and to be where there's good internet and there's decent sound and there's decent lighting and the camera and the phone and the battery, and there's just so many things that like the people that do it that have no problems do it very well. They make it look easy, and if you have it all set up in your favor, that's great. But lighting is my biggest issue, and in my house, like it's really nice. I like the lighting and it's pleasant, but it's not the best for this. And the Wi-Fi, we've just got a lot of really active interneters, and so the Wi-Fi is hard. And I myself like to be in a place where there's a lot of books. That's just kind of my like peaceful place, is being around books. Anyway, so I'm in a study area, and let's see here. There is, I'm just gonna close this. So, I am so like a little overwhelmed, and I feel way better now. But about the DNC fraud lawsuit, so I can't believe that now that I can get started. That was kind of my like, oh, he's blabbering. He's blabbering. Oh, I forgot to share this. So share this. So, okay, so I'm kind of blown away by the fact that no one is reporting this and that I am about to do this. Everything about this to me is very overwhelming and amazing that Real Progressives is the source of this information right now, and that alternative media is killing it. I am so proud of Real Progressives and basically everyone in this community of independent media right now that are stepping up. It's amazing to see and be a part of to begin with. And even more so, the Real Progressives are basically no one in mainstream media is reporting on this right now. And it's blowing me away because it's so like, basically, you can always watch mainstream media and see what are they reporting on, what do they want you to know, and when real things are happening, like when the primary was being rigged right before our eyes, we were like, why aren't they reporting on this? That's weird. It's radio silence, not a single one. It's like, it's such a red flag that no one is reporting on it for a reason. If it doesn't threaten them, it's not a big deal for them to report on it, so they do. But no mainstream media is reporting on this. They obviously don't want you to know how damning the information was that is now on federal court record for the DNC lawsuit rigging this primary against Bernie Sanders for Hillary Clinton. This is all on record now. These transcripts. So I'm just kind of ranting a little bit about how like epic of an event is unfolding before our eyes, and giving Real Progressives the props they deserve. Steve Grumbine, for the interview that Mike Sinato did with Jared Beck, one of the attorneys, the other night, was one of the most gripping things I've ever seen in my entire life. The magnitude of the rigging of an American primary process is a historical quagmire, to guess I'd use a Bernie word. Like, this is no small deal, and the mainstream media wants you to think it's a small deal because they don't want you to realize how much they fucked everyone over. And this is really, there's been no reform in the Democratic Party. Obviously, there's nothing happening to get us any type of recourse to prevent this from happening in the future. In any party, in any primary, in any state, at any level, it's insane that this could just keep happening over and over and over under the model that the Democrats used forever, indefinitely, unless there should be people in jail for election fraud. There should be people who are caught in putting favor in it for anyone in any way. Obviously, politics is about races and winning, and you have to compete. That's clear. That is part of it. Is like a competition. It's like you're competing. Yes, we get it, kind of. But at the same time, there have to be ethical accountabilities. There have to be courts that are aware of what's going on and prosecuting people who are fraudulent in their behavior in every election, including and most specifically the presidential election. And if we want any type of democracy, like everyone says, like, we need to make sure that the democratic process is intact. And, you know, before I could just obviously talk about this forever, but like for a lot of people, Hillary Clinton, it would have been easier to vote for Hillary Clinton if she didn't rig the primary, right? Like if Hillary Clinton somehow, if all these people really truly did support her and everybody is voting for her, and I was like, there's these huge Hillary rallies, right, in this parallel world. I don't know where this could ever happen. But there's these huge rallies for Hillary. Everybody wants to be popular, and I'm like, oh my God, people really love her. Okay, I don't like her, but if this many people want her to be president that bad, well, at least I know that that's what the majority thinks. Obviously, that didn't happen, and part of, I think, a lot of people's reason for being never Hillary, burning or bust, is because they rigged the primary, and that's no small deal. You can't rig the primary and then say, hey, vote for us anyway. It's just like, it blows my mind that they have the audacity to even say that. Like, it's crazy to me. It's crazy, crazy, crazy town. So kudos to, I hate that word. Oh, the worst word ever. Snaps to real progressives for being on this. And so basically what I'm going to outline here is the key takeaways from the DNC lawsuit hearing that took place on Monday of this past week. So so let me get the background right. So basically what happened is last summer, right before, it was in about June, like end of June, so Jared Beck and his wife, Elizabeth Lee Beck, filed a lawsuit, class action lawsuit. I was trying to become a plaintiff. I didn't get selected. I'm like, I want to be on my name to be on that so bad. So they filed a lawsuit basically alleging that the primaries were rigged for against Bernie Sanders, and that the basis of the lawsuit is a class action lawsuit. And again, giving you background because it's helpful to just remember this stuff. And just for the record, I have been a paralegal since 2006, so I've worked in the legal industry for a long time. I haven't worked in litigation. I work in transactional law. So litigation process I'm very familiar with and very exposed to, but I haven't worked on that specifically, so I have a good understanding of it. But I love the concept of peer review, and if there's any legal industry folks, feel free to peer review me. I talked to Jared Beck. He reviewed an article that I just wrote that's going up on Counter Propa that gives the background of the lawsuit, and then after I finish this talk tonight, I'm going to be writing this all out to have a companion piece go on the key takeaways from this lawsuit. So basically, so just to quick wrap up the background, the lawsuit was filed last summer. Obviously, a lot has transpired since then. The first thing that the DNC is trying to do now is they filed a motion to dismiss the lawsuit because they don't want the lawsuit to obviously even get to trial. So they file a motion to try and dismiss the lawsuit. It's in the Florida court. And Jared Beck and his wife, Elizabeth Beck, they have designated classes of people that have been, in a way, disaffected by the rigging of the primary. So this is basically the legal recourse of saying there was a primary that was rigged. Here are the people who are financially, in our system of government, are financially liable maybe for some losses based on what happened. So the classes are designated by the lawyers in their lawsuit. Partly, some are Bernie Sanders donors, people like me who donated to Bernie Sanders, assuming that he had a fair shot. I, to some extent knew he maybe didn't necessarily, but to how bad it was rigged, that's a different question. So there's one class is the Bernie Sanders donors. Another class is the DNC donors, people who gave money to the DNC. And then also the other class is, and I'll maybe flesh this out a little bit more, but the other class is just the Democrats in general, Democratic Party in general. So that kind of speaks to the complexity of the approach of the plaintiffs, is that there are different classes of people that have been affected by the rigging of the primary, and these are people whose situations the court should look at to determine what damages are owed to those people because of that. People like Bernie Sanders donors, what were they faulted? I gave, my Twitter tweet, I think probably about $1,000 total to Bernie over the course of the whole thing, right? So how much of that should be paid back to me? Should it be even more because of time I've donated? That's questions that are up in the air. Another class is people who donate to DNC straight. I don't think I ever did because I was like, fuck that. But I might have, because I gave some stray promotions I randomly gave here and there. So I might have given to the DNC. So I could be a benefactor of that element also. And then the Democratic Party is another class. So anyone who is a Democrat in some way was disaffected by the fact that their primary wasn't done in an even-handed manner. So those are the classes of people that are being represented by the plaintiffs and attorneys. And it's not just Jared and Elizabeth, but Jared has been arguing it, and the counsel is listed for the plaintiffs on the transcripts of the lawsuit. So what happened was on Monday, the judge had a hearing related to the motion to dismiss, which allowed the plaintiffs' attorneys, so Jared and Elizabeth, the key characters. I need to have like a map and get like everybody's names. So Jared is the main attorney for the plaintiffs representing Americans who were screwed over. And then the defendants, the lawsuit is filed against the DNC and Debbie herself. So that's partly why it's in Florida. It's because Debbie's from Florida. And so the lawsuit is being filed against the DNC and Debbie. So the lawyers are for DNC and Debbie. And so these are the people that are defending themselves and trying to get this court to strike down, just to dismiss the case like it's frivolous, basically. And so now the court heard their arguments. And so basically now we're seeing for the first time that what the DNC's lawyers are saying on the record to a federal judge in defense of, or describing how they did what they did leading into the primary, leading into the general election. And so that now that there's transcripts, so this interview, so this took place on Monday for several hours. This was a long hearing. What we learned from Jared at his interview with Mike Sinato the other night is that the judge asked very detailed questions to both sides, which is amazing. It's so just reassuring to hear that, because, oh shoot, I brought food. I totally got food because I'm starving and it's in the other room. But maybe I'll give you a minute to eat or break later. But I feel so much better. I was so anxious about this, but now that we're rolling, I feel so much better. And so, yeah, and put where you're from in the comments, where you're watching from. I have another half an hour, so I'm going to keep going. But definitely be active in the comments, because that's amazing. And share with people who might be interested in this, because this is gripping shit. So the DNC's lawyers. So the DNC and Debbie now have lawyers, and Mr. Spiva is the name that you're going to see a lot in the transcript. He's basically the main, Bruce V. Spiva Esquire is the main counsel for the defendants, and there's a list. They're attorneys from Tampa. I haven't researched them much yet, so I'll get that underway. But Spiva is an absolute idiot. It's crazy. You know that the Democrats are, they can't be, based on the corporatism that's going on in the party, the people that are Democrats at this point aren't good people trying to make good policy. They are fundraisers trying to be in an atmosphere of money. And so you don't expect them to be good at law or policy, because they commit their lives to fundraising. And so if they're good at anything, they're good at fundraising. And those types of people, in my opinion, at least political hacks, many of them don't ever get good at what they actually have to do, organizing. They think they're good at it because they're in the environment, but they don't understand that organizing voters is a completely different thing than fundraising. And for a party, those getting commingled, you find out that people who think that they're good at politics absolutely suck, because they don't know what they're doing, because they're just a fundraiser. And so these people, of course, birds of a feather, they're all idiots. They have the stupidest lawyers. They're so dumb. And it's really, really shocking. There's many times in this transcript, you're just like jaws on the floor. You're like, I cannot believe that they're saying this. They're saying this in court, on the record, to a federal judge. It's a federal court. It's not even a state court. It's just it's really, really crazy, the shit that the DNC's lawyers said. They're so dumb. It's crazy. But fortunately, we can now look at the transcript. So Jared had said the judge asked very detailed questions, and now we're seeing why. It's amazing. The judge asked really pointed questions and a lot of different questions, which is really good because obviously the more gray area in here makes it more likely that they're going to issue some kind of ruling in some kind of way, right? It's basically at this point, seeing the detail that the judge is asking, it's out of the question that the judge is not going to at least begin taking this seriously. The likelihood of it getting completely struck down, like Comey, where we had the Comey when he came out to be like, oh, all these things about Hillary, she did all this stuff wrong, she's completely reckless about the email, but no charges. That, at this point, the likelihood of that happening is basically none because the judge has identified so many different issues that are in play in this lawsuit that the likelihood of him being like, okay, I've analyzed 9 million issues here, they're all fine, none of them are problems. Like, that likelihood is so much lower, seeing the level of detail that is in the questions that have been asked. And so we'll go over some of these questions. I'll talk about some of those things. But that is like your first big good omen that this is going to be that seems to be like it's going to be litigated properly and not done by a compromised judge who's like getting paid off by Debbie to rule in her favor. So basically, the transcripts came out on Friday, and not even The Intercept has reported on them. No one's reporting on this yet, and it's crazy. And I kind of am spiraling into this, and I always just do random talks to get started when people are signing in. But I did want to do a shout out here to WikiLeaks and to all the whistleblowers. This is the truth. Obviously, what's fascinating to me about this is now we have stuff on the record. For as much as denial that happened the entire primary, there's so much denial of this. And it was infuriating to people that are like, why is the media narrative accepting the BS that glazed over the fact this primary was rigged? And it's such a severe issue, and no one wants to challenge the Democratic Party, right? They're the deep state front group at this point, one of them. And it's extremely brave. You have to be very brave to address this. Jared Beck and all of the attorneys working on this are American heroes for doing this. The level of detail in their arguments is fan-fucking-tastic. I'm so proud of them. I'm so honored to know them. This is such an important case because the ramifications will trickle into every other election going forward. And we need more people like us. I'm preaching to the choir, I get it. We need to learn this shit inside out, understand what's on the record now, and inform, and we need to push this truth to as many people as possible and get them to look at the transcripts themselves. Understand, oh, can you believe they said that? The DNC is a freaking, I hate the word freaking, but I would say it's not say fucking. The DNC is a fucking stinking ass shit. This is so fucking incriminating. And now you can't, there's no room for, oh, it's not real anymore because we have information that's on record to a federal court judge that's being discussed by a judge right now. So you can force people to react to this, and I encourage you to do so. And it's scary because you have to confront authority, and that is really scary. And obviously I'm just doing a little random live stream, but at the same time, I'm hoping to do justice to all of the people who are trying to leak information and share information and get information out there and present facts out there for exposure and for people to understand. It's just, we need more people to do it so people feel more comfortable doing it. It's very scary to confront authority, like I said. And the more people that are doing it, the more comfortable it's like, okay, it's happening more often. So equip yourself. And with this transcript, these are great things to know and have. And that's why the excerpts on Twitter, I love being able to post these excerpts because it's like, it just helps you get sound bites. And it helps you memorize things that you can use as defense of your arguments why the DNC basically should be scrapped, if not completely reformed. I don't have a official opinion on what to do with it. I'm just like, I don't want to be a part of it unless Bernie and Nina and Tulsi take it over. So in my short time that I have here tonight, I did want to dedicate this to all the whistleblowers and all of the fact seekers and all of the renegades that are out there just trying to get the truth out. And going from there, because the more truth that gets out there, the better. And, one of the things that I love about facts is that they never change, ever. They are a constant, and anywhere you go, the facts will always still be true there, which is awesome. Every person you ever talk to, the facts will still be true to both of you. I love facts so much for how consistent they are. It's just, that's straightforward to me. I'm going to be as accurate as I can in explaining all this stuff to you guys. And please peer review me and be constructive with helping us all understand what's all in play. It's exciting. It's important. No one's talking about it. They should be. And let's go over the main points now. And I'll write later all of this down so we can have it in writing more. But the key takeaways, I'm going to start scrolling through the script and we're going to talk about it. And I'm just super honored to be here with you guys. So thanks everybody for joining. And so part of the way I got big on Twitter or whatever is I was writing a lot of the WikiLeaks. As the WikiLeaks were being exposed, the Podesta emails coming out, and Goose for Two follows me on Twitter. I was like, oh my God, so honored when I'm pretty sure, followed me. And it's really hard to just get this information out there. The mainstream media does not want this information out there. So honor this information, share it, go with it and run with it. And I'm going to be as, there's a lot of points that came out in this. And I am going to do my best to get to all of the most important ones, despite the fact that I'm having a little bit of a spotty internet on my computer here. But this seems fine, so that's good. First main point of the lawsuit. So if you're scrolling through the lawsuit, so basically the court, begins, and we have the judge is going to be asking questions from both for the plaintiffs, who is our team, and the defendants at the beginning. And so basically, the judge starts by outlining everything that happened in terms of. So he says, let's see here. So he says, and the judge he's chill. I like him from reading this. He says, let me give a brief description of the case at this point. The plaintiffs brought the suit as a putative class action against the defendants, DNC and Debbie Wasserman Schultz. According to their complaint that, let's see here, all the people, they list the classes, that there are 6 causes of action that are being brought. Fraud by the DNC donor, fraud that's been conducted, negligent misrepresentation, unjust enrichment, breach of fiduciary duty, negligence by the DNC. So they basically outline the charges that are against the DNC and Debbie right away. And so it's even just seeing them in print, it's nice to see. And the DNC's lawyers are basically completely all over the place. I was just flabbergasted to see how unprepared they were in this. I'm like, they're dumb people, they're bad lawyers, they're not prepared for this, they've had forever to prepare for this, and they don't even have good arguments together. He doesn't even have his messaging down. He says various things. And so right out the gate, so now the weird thing that you have to keep in mind when you're looking at these transcripts is you have to remember that the DNC is going to be trying to say, theoretically, that they didn't rig the primary. So regardless of the fact that they have to address all these specific causes as part of the lawsuit, to some extent the DNC is going to try, right, theoretically, try and not ever admit that they ever rigged the primary in theory in responding to these. So the DNC's lawyer is kind of like walking in a minefield, because at any minute he could say something, and he does, that basically says they rigged the primary. And the way that the primary was rigged wasn't necessarily just with one deliberate, we had a meeting how to rig the primary. Obviously there were a lot of factors that were done that were influenced, that a lot of media was manipulated, the political establishment was manipulated, and to a different extent all of these different things came together to rig the primary for Hillary Clinton in various ways, right? So the DNC lawyers are going to try and not say that at any point. But he flops all over the place, and he definitely does not understand that, or he doesn't understand what his own argument is. And so he tries to tell the judge right away, which is insane to me. He tries to tell the judge that the court doesn't have the right to decide what the DNC does. So the first major takeaway of the transcripts is that the DNC now has on record that they are telling the judge, right? And when you're thinking about lawsuits, it's like, okay, part of it is what's based on the facts, but also part of it is like, have you been wronged, and to what extent have you been wronged, and to what extent was that wrongfulness imposed on you intentionally? So the nuances of the judge's response to stuff matters, because it's like it's basically, you know, people get punished more for being deliberately bad versus negligently bad, right? So the DNC's lawyer right away says, and it's really hard to even read it too, so, and I'll figure out, but, and that's why it'll be better for you to read the written piece, and I do that following this, but it's the DNC's lawyer is completely rambling, and so it's like you can tell he's like a hot ass mess, like he doesn't know what he's talking about. But basically, this is the first thing he says to the lawyer out the gate, or to the judge right out the gate. He says, "I'm going to start with the issue of standing, whether this case is legitimate, basically." And they're trying to say, of course it's not, based on, that's the whole point of this is a motion to dismiss. And he basically says, the courts don't have authorization. The courts aren't people, like, this is basically being brought against us as a political weapon, and the court doesn't have the right to even decide on this, because it's the Democratic Party's right to do it however they want. So basically, it's just, and it's hard to even for me to react to some of this shit, because I'm just like, how can you twist, it's mental gymnastics to believe that this is happening. And now the DNC is on record telling the court that they don't have the right to judge what the DNC does in terms of how they determine who their nominee is. So that's an audacious statement for the DNC's lawyers to make, and they basically made that a statement right out the gate. And this idiot, I mean, I wish I had like 5 hours to talk about this stuff, because I'm like reading it page for page, and I'm just like, I want to tell you 9 million things. But basically, he says, I think that really what runs through all of these questions is that the court would have to address to resolve that claim that really it's so hard to read it because this guy's such an idiot. This can't be resolved as a class action. The court would have to resolve such issues as what was the meaning of the Democratic Party's internal rule and how it should be enforced. So they can't. He basically says that it's just an internal rule at the DNC that the party is doing it in a fair manner. And he tries to basically throw the judge off right away. It's insane. He tries to say, Judge, you shouldn't care. Like, you shouldn't worry about this, Judge. Don't worry about it. It's the DNC's decision to worry about it. You don't have to worry about it. It's just an internal rule. And then the judge immediately responds, and he says, you're talking about the DNC charter now. And the guy's like, oh yeah, well, they're bylaws, which this guy doesn't even know. The lawyer, Spiva, isn't even well researched on the entities that he's representing, because he makes so many ridiculous mistakes about like comments about the DNC's charter. Bylaws are a different thing than charter. So it's like this guy's making mistakes, and it's like, okay, you're looking like a complete idiot to the judge, and he must not even realize it because he's making so many mistakes. But the court rightfully pointed out, so in the DNC's charter, it says there's a very specific charter item in the charter that says specifically that the chairperson must be fair and even-handed, and it is the responsibility solely of the chairperson to make sure that everything is being conducted in an even and fair manner. That is in the DNC's charter. And so the way that the class action lawsuit is being presented is it's saying, look, this is the charter that people understand as the Democratic Party. It's in line with the Constitution, and because the DNC violated this charter, there should be repercussions for the people who were duped basically by this lie and by this charter that's clearly fraudulent, basically selling snake oil. It's basically what the DNC is doing. And so this guy right away, the lawyer for the DNC, says that it's just an internal rule. But nope, it's actually not an internal rule. It's in the DNC's charter. And so the court has to correct him right away. And the court says, go ahead. It was very much the like, please proceed, Governor, of this. I just had that flashback, which it's like, oh, that was back before I really hated Obama. So it's kind of charming remembering that, but whatever at this point. So that's your first major takeaway, is the DNC basically told the court that they don't have the right to decide this because it's just the DNC's internal rule. That, like, I could unpack that in like a 10-page article just to begin with, but I don't have time to do all that. So we're going to move on to additional takeaways. So that's your first takeaway. And let's see here. So Jared Beck has done just such an outstanding job. You want to talk about good research. Jared, it's like such beautiful history lesson reading what he's wrote. I'm going to focus on the content that is from the DNC lawyers, because I think that that is more relevant, because it's more important, in my opinion, to be analyzing what the DNC is saying and trying to figure out how good their argument is for explaining what they did. So I'm not going to focus very much on what Jared said, but it's a pleasure reading his stuff, and I'm going to read this all like 5 times over again in the next week. I'm sure it's like so interesting to me. But enjoy Jared's words, because he's a brilliant man, and we are so lucky that he is approaching this period, and I feel really lucky that he is our representative on this, because I can't imagine this takes so much knowledge to be able to present this, and Jared has it all and kills it, and it's pretty fucking mind-blowing to see how intelligent he is, and passionate and informed, and just like with his heart in the right place, that he's fighting for our democracy like this, because somebody has to, well, hopefully, right? So next major takeaway is we're going to talk about how the DNC has, they have basically said that it's fine. They have this weird plot hole. So the second takeaway, I would say, and I might change this order when I finish this piece. This is kind of last minute, but a big plot hole that emerged in this DNC argument is that the DNC has said that they have the opportunity and they should have no legal accountability if they rig the primary, because they can decide whatever they want, because that's the DNC and it's their choice. They use this reference to a cigar-filled room where and it's just really, again, it's just like, how do you, like, you couldn't make this up if you tried, like, that they brought in this whole, like, old-timey boys' room story, because that's, like, the imagery they want to be invoking as they're trying to defend themselves on this. It's fucking ridiculous. But, basically, the DNC has said that they have the authority to rig the primary if they want. They don't even care, like, it doesn't matter how they pick their nominee, because it's their choice to begin with. That is an argument that they make, and they use this analogy that says they could decide in a smoke-filled room if they wanted. There's no legal accountability. It doesn't matter. While at the same time saying that, they also say, but we didn't do it. They say it's totally fine if we rigged the primary, but also we didn't rig the primary. But if we did, it'd be fine. But we did. It would be fine. This is why it would be fine if we did. But of course we didn't. It's a really weird, double-headed, like, again, this lawyer's squirming like an idiot and doesn't have one argument down, and so he's saying two things at the same time. And they basically have said that it's whether or not they rigged the primary. They already can't have it both ways. They already completely indicted the Democratic Party, and this blows my mind. They already completely indicted the Democratic Party to the extent that they said, and not coherently because this guy's an idiot, but they basically went on federal record to a judge saying we could rig the primary if we wanted to, and there would be no legal accountability, and we just believe that, and it doesn't matter. They have said that. Whether they did it or not doesn't actually necessarily matter to some extent, because now we know that they would feel totally fine if they wanted to rig the primary. And the judge clapped back right away. It was fucking amazing. The judge was like, so wait, are you saying that all of the primary is unfair? Is that what you're saying? Like, it's just fine if that happens? The judge literally pounced right on it and damned him right in his fucking tracks. Which I'm so glad, the judge was appointed by Ronald Reagan, so it's a Republican judge, so that's good, I guess. I do like the judge a lot from the transcripts, and he's funny, and like he seems very thoughtful and reasoned. I don't know a whole lot about his background, so I'm going to read more about that, but I am pleased with the judge and the way that he is presenting himself in this. And one of the most impressive moments to me was when the DNC lawyer said it'd be fine if we rigged the primary, it wouldn't be a problem. The judge literally asked him, so are you saying that all of the primaries are rigged? And it's just like that that there was that clarity and that he didn't have any problem just saying that straight up means that he obviously is not going to be, it shows us that he's not bullshitting about the fact that this is basically a rigged primary. And the DNC basically fucked themselves over already, because they already said that it doesn't matter how we run the primary, because we have no legal accountability, because we could do it in a smoke-filled room with cigars if we wanted, so it doesn't matter. They already said that. But they didn't. They said that, but then they also said they didn't rig the primary. So it's basically, like, it blows my mind that now anyone who ever asks me to vote for the Democratic Party will be like, oh, but like, their thing is that, like, they don't care about rigging the primary, right? Whether or not they did, we don't even have to agree on that if they did rig the primary for Hillary Clinton, because they've already admitted in the court, and they've sent their lawyers to the federal court to say it doesn't matter if we rig the primary. They literally did that. And there's no possible way that now anyone can tell me to vote for the Democratic Party. I mean, it's a challenge to begin with, and obviously I'll vote for Democrats in general because they're whatever. But it is completely on record that the DNC doesn't care about having even-handedness or impartiality in their primary process. So whether or not it is basically confirmed that they rigged the primary, it doesn't matter, because they have already said that they are fine to rig the primary one way or the other. And I think that the ramifications of that is going to be extremely difficult for them to try and get over in terms of keeping people's faith in the party. I think that that's basically the biggest thing that they just did. They shot themselves in the foot saying, we can rig the primary if we want, period. And it was just so matter of fact. It really is shocking how matter of fact they were saying that. And that's just like they expect that to be common knowledge. And that was one of the things I said previously when they were commenting on this issue back when the lawsuit was first filed, is they were saying, people know the primary was rigged. What are you talking about? Of course it was rigged. The Bernie Sanders donors gave money knowing it was rigged. Look, Zach said that he doesn't care that it's rigged. He's still giving money to Bernie. Like, they could say all that, and it's, oh my God, so overwhelming to think of how stupid it is. But they think that they want us to believe that it's just fine for the primaries to be rigged, and it's like totally on paper. Crazy. So another little ramification that kind of came out here, and this is one of the things that you should be thinking about as you're reading these transcripts, understanding, is as we examine what we think the outcome of this ruling is going to be, is we have to be thinking about the financial systems that are existing within the DNC, because those are going to be basically the sources of the financial compensation, or whatever type of compensation is offered to us, the classes that would benefit from this class action. It's going to come down to some financial situation. And so the third takeaway about this, and I'm so hungry, I see people talking about food, and my food's sitting in the other room, but I don't want to go away from the computer. So I'll just eat it when it's cold in 20 minutes. So the next big takeaway is, well, I don't know if I want to constitute this as a takeaway. Let me talk about it, and we can decide if it's a takeaway together. So the judge asked the DNC's lawyers, what type of involvement does the DNC have in primaries at the state level? And of course, the DNC lawyers are terrible and stupid, and they didn't have a prepared response for this. Not only did they not have a prepared response for this, but they also didn't know the fucking answer to the question. Like, I get so anxious that I'm like not knowing all my facts. I like go insane being anxious about that. These guys don't even give a shit about knowing the facts so they can work around them. This guy, the lawyer for the DNC, is such a hack that he doesn't understand the financial systems that exist between the DNC nationally and Democratic parties on state levels. That blows my mind to begin with. It's not common knowledge, obviously, but if anyone were to know it, it would be the lawyer, because they would want to be able to defend why no one is entitled to money being paid back to them. So the DNC lawyers admitted that they don't know. So this was his response. I'm going to try and paraphrase it. The court asked, what type of involvement does the DNC have in the primaries at state levels? And he responds, he says, those are primarily dealt with state parties, state and local committees, Your Honor. There's some coordination between the DNC and those parties. The DNC obviously runs the convention, the nominating process, and there are certain rules about how delegates get seated and the like. So the judge literally asked what type of involvement does the DNC have at state level, and he's already spiraling off. It's just so stupid. But as a general matter, this does not run the state level primaries, if that gets to your question. And then he says, does the DNC still help fund the state parties? Because, of course, he didn't even mention anything about how the DNC really interacts and supports or doesn't support the state party. And this is really interesting because we know Hillary Clinton, one of the big damning stories that came out was how she was funneling in money that was supposed to go to state parties funneling it to her campaign. And so you can tell from this that the judge understands that the money going into the DNC is to some extent obligated to fulfill the mission of the DNC to some extent, right? But he's asking about the state parties because that is where the money would have been shorted, is on state levels. And this shows that he's thinking about it like he's using his brain and he's smart and he's thinking. But when you look at states that would have maybe won, if Bernie would have had, if those resources were applied even-handedly, Bernie would have won more primary states, period. He would have won the states that he won bigger. And so every single state has a potential issue in it in terms of where it was getting its funds and if it should have been getting funds allocated from the DNC on a national level or not. So that is a very important thing to be considering. The judge is asking, and the DNC's lawyers don't even fucking know. They're so, like, it's really impressive. I thought that they would actually have an answer to that because they would have planned how they were going to work their way around it. But he says, the judge asks several questions, and the DNC's lawyers talk all around it and don't answer the question. And the judge literally says, he asks, he's like, does the DNC, he's repeating himself, it's hilarious. You can just hear the annoyance in his voice. Does the DNC, with the money that it raises, use some of that money to help fund the states putting on their individual primaries? The DNC lawyer says, I don't believe so, Your Honor. And the court says, but you don't know. You don't know. You don't even know if your client that you're representing, you don't even know if how the financial operation of your client works. And you're here to defend that they did it ethically and accurately? How? How could you? It just the gaps. Again, there's so many jaw-dropping moments in this where you're just like, they're so dumb they don't even realize how incriminating their actions and their words are. And you can see in the in the judge's response that he's privy to, like, the fact that they're not able to give coherent answers on some of these. And that just speaks to individual elements of these different items that are going to get vetted as part of which classes are affected and which classes are owed what. So yeah, I think that will constitute the third official takeaway, is that the DNC doesn't know how the states interact. The DNC doesn't, and this is, I'm going to have to develop this messaging, or this phrasing, but the DNC doesn't have messaging on how it uses its state fund. This whole area is now in a fog, because if the DNC lawyer doesn't know it, my hunch is that it doesn't exist to some extent, that there's an actual specific structure that they would want to know, or at least tell us, so they could use that as the basis of how they're going to lie to get around not wanting to have to owe anything. It would be interesting if they were like, oh, we're going to settle. Can we offer you a settlement? If the DNC is like, actually, yeah, we rigged the primary. We would rather just settle this now, not go to trial, not have any of this come out. We'll pay $100 million to everybody back, and they just settle. That would be really crazy. I highly doubt that it happened. I'm pretty sure they're going to go down fighting tooth and nail to deny any wrongdoing whatsoever. But we can say that that's a big takeaway, is that there is a gray area as to how the funds should be used from the national DNC to state parties, which of course we would want the states to be able to have the proper funding for all of their primaries, so we could trust that all states are conducting their primaries in a fair manner, to be able to make sure we know who everyone wants to, who everyone's voting for, and that the nominee is determined by the party based on the functioning primary system. So that is an important thing to know, that what we're thinking about as we dissect what's going to happen with this. If it gets to discovery, if it gets to trial, we're going to be looking at, to some extent, what the DNC owed state parties to be able to help those parties have fair and functioning primary processes. And I think that I would be really hard. I don't think that there's any way that the judge is going to be able to not move this case on to trial based on how how complicated and how just detailed his questions are. There's so much to unravel on this. He said it's going to take a long time, and that's just for this next step. So it's just all good in the sense that there is going to be some ramifications coming down from the court saying that what the DNC did was wrong to some extent, and we're going to just find that out more and more as we see how this case progresses. So let's see here. I think I'm going to do, oh shit, it's already 6. Fuck. Goddamn. So I'll wrap it up really quick then. And I am going to hopefully be on doing this more again soon. Because there's so much to unravel on this. This is about over 100 pages of court reporting. And just from last week, and we're going to have some time before anything else is released on this. But, there's a lot to dig through, and I want to do as much as I can out of my pleasure. And like, I've barely even scratched the surface right now. I knew that this is gonna go a lot faster than I expected. But let me just focus on the judge's closing remarks for a second, because the judge made some amazing closing remarks that give us an idea for how things are going to move forward. So basically the next step, so the judge needs to determine now that the DNC filed a motion to dismiss. They want the case dismissed. So now the judge has to issue an order related to the motion to dismiss. So basically what's going to happen is the judge is going to say, I'm striking down the motion to dismiss because XYZ. And striking that motion down would allow the trial to be scheduled. So what would happen first is this process called discovery. So basically that discovery process would allow Jared and our lawyers versus their lawyers also, but they would allow them to call Debbie Wasserman Schultz, Donna Brazil, all of the goons that rigged the primary, call them to testify under oath based on what happened. And then from there, the judge can move forward in that. So that's discovery phase, and then a trial would happen after that. Witnesses would be called to trial. That's all coming down the pike. And based on the complexity of the judge's response, it looks very clear that it would be shocking if he struck down everything. And this is what he said as his closing remarks. I'm just going to read it because it's amazing. Well, I want to thank the counsel for your responses to the court's questions. They've been very helpful. This is a very interesting case, to say the least. And counsel for the plaintiffs spoke about whether or not our society, these are the court's words, not his words, he did not use the word society, but whether society is in a dire situation. And so I leave the lawyers with this. Democracy demands the truth so people can make intelligent decisions. Everyone have a safe trip back. He literally highlighted at the end, I leave you with this. Democracy demands the truth so people can make intelligent decisions. That's such a good omen in general, that that's what the court is looking at the heart of this, is that the truth, democracy, the institution of democracy demands the truth. And if you are not being truthful, he values truthfulness. And if you're not being truthful to Americans, you are not, that does not constitute democracy. So it's really an absolute, I mean, it's a dream quote, honestly, that this is what we are reading. It blows my mind that we have something this tangible to hold on to, that the judge values the truth. Oh my God, it's so sad that in this world I have to be like happy that our judges value the truth. Like, it's so sad that we're at this point. But thank God this judge values the truth and understands the importance of truth as a functioning piece of a democracy. And that ties this to the Constitution and not even just into the DNC's charter. The judge obviously understands the layers of complexity to this, is not denying them, is not glossing over them, and is saying, regardless of all of these issues in play, democracy demands the truth. Like, I can't even believe that that's a legitimate quote that he said. I will leave you with this. It's amazing. So I will leave you with that. I want you to take this and run with it. I'm going to try and schedule more talks on this and kind of outline them, so we have a little bit more of a plan to look at these different takeaways, because the more people that know this, the better. And my friend Taylor said this amazing thing right before I was getting on this, and he pointed out that the importance of this case, besides the fact that we're going to this case is going to have ramifications in every case moving forward, but my friend Taylor pointed out this really, the heart of this story for us is the illusion of choice. Basically, we are in this duopoly where there's the illusion of choice. And what the DNC now, through their lawyers, is doing is they are trying to defend the fact that our democracy is just a choice of illusion and that there's actually no real choice in who you have as your primary nominee. It's just an illusion. The DNC is now fighting to protect the illusion of choice. And by breaking this open and by making everyone understand that this lawsuit is taking place and the complexity of it and the folks that are affected by it is a way that we have to dismantle the idea that democracy is only an illusion of choice and work toward making our democracy actually function the way it's supposed to be. So amazing to have all of this happening. Jared Beck and all the teams, his team working on this, I can't thank them enough. Thanks to Real Progressives for having the most important discussions that are out there. Stay tuned. I'm going to get on the schedule again as soon as I can to talk more about this. I'm going to release a write-up of this, so I'm going to write out these key takeaways and build them out a little bit more. I got a new piece coming out about this, so check that. And then my Twitter is full of captions from the lawsuit transcripts themselves. So if you want to go through my Twitter, I've got a lot of stuff on there, and I'm going to keep bringing it at you. So thank you so much for joining me, you guys. Have a great weekend, everybody. My name is Zach Haller for Real Progressives, and democracy demands the truth so people can make intelligent society. It's a really good sign-off line. Have a good weekend, everybody. I'll see you later.